Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya. So today I became the Varaha Acharya. I went into a pit of trash and sat in the pit and collected trash. It was one of the best days of my life.
Our also.
And every Saturday you can participate. Yeah, and we kept pulling trash out and more trash. I was looking for gold plates left over from the last yuga because there was so much trash. We found about 6 conch shells. What else did we find? A few necklaces.
8 conch.
No gold, no diamonds.
Plastic necklaces. So it was really nice. So every Saturday they clean trash. And it's amazing. It's so interesting. You sit in dirt, you get your clothes dirty, your hands dirty, and you come out clean. Isn't that amazing? By going through garbage, you come out clean. My dhoti is completely dirty, but I'm feeling very cleansed. And I think everyone who went there today was feeling very cleansed. Yes? Yeah. It was like, who would ever think that being a garbage collector was that much fun?
We are making career.
Yeah.
We ended up as a
Yes. So we're going to continue reading from where we left off a few days ago. I just have to find the chapter. And yesterday we had made 2 points very strongly, that the devotee will always feel that they can be better. They'll always be feeling that they're lacking. And they'll always be aware of their shortcomings. But at the same time, we need to be aware of positive things about ourselves and about our service and so forth. Otherwise, we could get easily discouraged. One time, Prabhupada said that if you lose your enthusiasm, basically you lose everything. And so in saying that, he was indirectly saying, don't lose your enthusiasm. And of course, I think the problem is, we may have good reason to lose our enthusiasm sometimes, isn't it? But Prabhupada's point is that if you have a good reason not to be enthusiastic, it's not a good reason. Actually, there is no good reason. Is it raining? No?
No.
What is it? Fire? Yeah. We told this story many times. It's so interesting. It's funny, and it just hits the spot that this devotee was being discouraged. It was a woman that was being discouraged. Sometimes the men could be discouraging. Oh, you women are this, you women are that. And so she was one of the senior women, one of the first devotees, and she was very close to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada gave her a lot of time and attention. So if your spiritual master is giving you a lot of time and attention, and then the other men are saying, oh, you're just a woman, putting you down, it can be quite discouraging. So she was very discouraged. And she explained everything that was happening. She said, Prabhupada, I just feel like giving up. This is so discouraging. The men are so discouraging. And she had done lots of service, and Prabhupada appreciated it. She put on festivals by herself. We were just talking the other day that when Prabhupada came to America, women in India weren't even driving cars. So when Prabhupada saw that his female disciples could drive cars, he thought that was so Cool, for lack of a better word. He just thought that was cool. My female disciples drive cars, that was like so amazing. And then they like put on festivals, like in Jaipur, this devotee put on this big festival, her and one other god sister. And it's like, Prabhupada wasn't expecting that, because at that time in India, women didn't have a very prominent position. So she told Prabhupada, I feel like giving up. And Prabhupada said something amazing. He said, you have no right to be discouraged. There's a song like that. Well, you have no right. You know that song? You have no right. It wasn't to be discouraged, but there's a song like that. You have no right to be discouraged. And then Prabhupada said, he said, in other words, he's saying, what is ever happening to you is not significant enough to be discouraged. And then Prabhupada said something amazing. Who knows what Prabhupada said?
I know, but I'm not saying.
She knows, because she has a good memory. Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you. He said, if anyone has a right to be discouraged, it's me. And then he went on and explained all the reasons why he should be discouraged, or he could be discouraged. You know, all the trouble he had in starting the movement. How difficult it was. And he was saying, you don't realize, he was saying, not I'm saying, he was saying, you don't realize how difficult it was to start this movement. I mean, just think back. You go in, you're coming from Vrindavan into a den of hippies, who bathe once a week. I mean, I know, I was like, I didn't want to change my clothes for a week, because I thought, it's like, you got the energy of those clothes, like they're dirty, and they've been in the, hugging trees and sleeping on the ground. Yeah, so just imagine, there's no movement, there's just you, and there's a bunch of hippies. And you don't know how high they are when they're listening to you. And you have no idea what they're going to do when you leave. And they don't know who you are, and you have no money, and people are stealing your things and throwing you out on the street. And you don't know from day to day how you're going to live. So Prabhupada said, you have no right to be discouraged. If anyone has a right, it's me. And he said, my godbrothers didn't help me. Nobody helped me. So he gave all the good reasons to be discouraged. Like, there's nothing on the horizon but just doom and gloom. And he said, and I was never discouraged. Why? Because I had to order my guru. I had the mission of my guru. And so how can you be discouraged when your guru gives you a mission? Now, I know all of you at some time in your life, maybe today, yesterday, last week, last month, maybe every day of your life, can find reasons to be discouraged. Yes? Have you ever found a reason to be discouraged?
Yes.
Yeah. You just look in the mirror and you go, yeah, that's a good enough reason to be discouraged. Just look at me. I'm like a total mess. What other reason do I need? And then you start thinking of your past, right? All these things you did, and like, God, I'm so handicapped. Right? And then you can really get into it. When I was 12, this happened, and my father this, my mother that, my best friend this, and then when I was in college this, we did that. And it's just like a list of reasons, like there's no way I'm going to make it. And then you join the Hare Krishna movement and you find out all the devotees aren't pure devotees. Have you found that out yet? Did you notice they're not all pure devotees? Anybody not notice? Yeah, we've noticed that, right? And have you ever noticed that there's a difference between ISKCON and Krishna consciousness? Have you ever noticed that? They're not the same. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
And sometimes devotees do things that devotees don't do. That's quite a paradox, right? Devotees do things that devotees, they should not do. And it's very discouraging, isn't it? Yes. And we have to hear Prabhupada saying, you have no right to be discouraged. We should write a song.
Yeah, please.
You have no right to be discouraged. Yeah, that would be Yeah, that would be important. Right? You're going to write the song. Jasoda's going to write the song. You're going to sing it for us tomorrow? Before you go, you're going to write it? Send me the words. You have to list all the bad things that happen, and then the chorus is, I have no right to be discouraged. Right? Is that right? Yes? If anyone has a right to be discouraged, it's Prabhupada, and he was never discouraged. That's the chorus. So, now, what is Maya's job? She has many jobs, but if Maya can discourage you, then you're pretty much finished. So that's why Prabhupada says, if you lose your enthusiasm, everything's finished. Enthusiasm is your momentum. Right? You're going up the hill, you're climbing the Himalayas, it's getting colder, the air is getting thinner, and what is your mind saying? You can't do this. It's too hard. It was you. No, Russian. I went somewhere in the snow. Snowing everywhere, like for 20 minutes. And then they come out in their swimming trunks and they hike up a mountain. It's like 20, 30, 40 below. They're going through. They're just putting them through this intense austerity. So, sometimes spiritual life is difficult. And the mind is saying, the closer you become. Because you have. And going through a person, like a special gift. You know, like your wife gets talking. He said, our goal is to become a slave. That's our goal. That's our highest aspiration, is to be a slave of Krishna, whatever he wants. And you think, oh no, a slave. But we're a slave. Yes or yes? That's what love is. Slave of Krishna. She right, you have no right, and she right. Slave of love. I have a concert in a few days. Yeah, it's
We
gonna.
already have a concert.
What?
We already have a concert.
Oh yeah. Wow. Mine is backup singers. That if I'm doing austerity and it's difficult, or Krishna. And if you do not try to understand Krishna, then you are Atma. They have been described in the Shastra, Atma, my throat. Then who can say? So, and Narottam Das Thakur, who understands, Hari Hari Viparija Radha Bhajiya. Figurative, killing your spiritual life. It is our duty, of course, servant of Krishna, to awaken everyone to Krishna consciousness by this process. But people should take it very seriously. That without taking to Krishna consciousness, one is making suicide. He's cutting poison. Like to drink poison. So, I've said this many times. If you isolate, you say, well, what was Prabhupada's message? What was this consistent message that he gave over an important aspect of it? Don't waste your life. Don't destroy. What do you think about it? Right? That was the foundation. And we heard that every day. You can go back to Godhead. So we hear that, and just kind of hear it and go, okay, what's for breakfast? Something like that, right? And then I remember one class, but I am not that body. I am spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna. And everyone was like, it was like there was an earthquake in Los Angeles. And everyone said, did you feel that when Prabhupada said it? We all said, yeah, because when he said it, he was realizing what he was saying, and we all felt it, like amazing. And so that was Prabhupada's mood, was to shake us up, because you could see we didn't get it. So when you're reading Prabhupada's books, or when you're hearing the transcription of his lectures, try to understand this point. It's not very passive. So, as we all know, you're not the body, you're spirit, soul, and human life is very rare, and if you don't take it, you're killing yourself. And then he questions. That wasn't like that at all. It was like, and you're killing yourself. You're committing suicide. That's how he would say it. Just like there was a director there. Say it like this. It's completely dramatic, and it's just... He was really trying to wake us up, because we needed it. You agree? You need it?
Every day.
Okay, so now a few more paragraphs. I say something, and then we get another quote. Do you do anything consciously or unconsciously that hurts yourself, materially or spiritually? Yes?
I think we all have the lesson.
Yeah. We'll read it again. I do it when I don't chant my rounds attentively, when I don't give myself quality time for my spiritual practice, when I neglect my health, when I overwork and waste time in idle talk and frivolous activities. I have seen that some devotees are so conditioned to doing the wrong things that they cannot sustain devotional practices that would keep them happy in Krishna consciousness. Thus they allow old habits to dominate their lives, causing them to do things that are self-destructive. So that's the kind of theme of this chapter, self-destructive activities. One of these is harming others, which is a characteristic of self-envy, according to Bhagavatam. Listen to this. A person who commits murder is envious of himself, and also the person he has killed. For the result of committing murder is that he will be arrested and hanged. Isn't that interesting? Prabhupada's saying, if you kill someone, you'll be arrested and hanged. So you're envious of the person you kill, and you're envious of yourself because you're killing yourself, you're killing somebody else. It's like, brain's not working. That's the problem. Do you ever feel like that? Your brain's not working?
Yeah.
Like
We bring not connection with our...
you read, you get out of class, or you read Bhagavatam for an hour, and you get up, and it's like, nothing, It's like a mathematical equation, I can't figure it out. And it's like, Hare Krishna. Thus we cannot harm another being without harming ourselves. Self-destructive habits can be due to low self-esteem. Devotees tend to struggle more with sadhana because they don't love themselves or value themselves enough to take care of their spiritual lives. So this is one of the main points of this chapter, that this is just what I've noticed, and it's probably been delineated by people who are more well-informed about this problem. But it just seemed to me that a lot of devotees, they kind of come to this point where if they're going down in their spiritual life, they don't care enough to steer back in the right, the car's going this way, and they don't care enough to steer back because it's too much trouble. And they'll say something like, I don't care. I know, but I don't care. Have you ever said I don't care? That is the worst thing. Don't ever say that. If you ever say I don't care, beat yourself up. Put on the pause button, go back and erase it. Because if you don't care about your spiritual life, then no matter what help you get, it's not going to work. And Prabhupada said that. He said, I can't help you if you don't care. Right?
Yeah.
I'll show you how to do it, but you have to care enough to do it. So this is a very important point. If you ever come to a point where you don't care, danger sign, go to the hospital. See a doctor, get cured, because that is the beginning of the end. You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. When one is taking care of oneself materially, but neglecting one's spiritual life, it shows that one is neglecting oneself in the highest and deepest sense. Self-envy thus comes camouflaged in various ways, even as so-called self-care. Like you care for yourself to the point that you neglect your sadhana. So one thought I'd like to leave with you, if your sadhana is not good, or you're getting weak with your sadhana, just think, I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not giving myself quality time. And you will notice that any devotee who is doing well in Krishna consciousness, they give themselves enough time every day. It's like any guy who's got big muscles. You know he spends time at the gym at least 5 days a week, right? For at least an hour or an hour and a half. Otherwise, he couldn't look like that. So anyone who's doing well in their spiritual life is giving themselves time, for sure. And I see that as necessary self-care. And I see that comes from this attitude of I care. Not like I don't care. I'm not worth it. You are worth it. In Prabhupada's eyes, you're worth it, definitely. Definitely worth it. Now, think of it this way. Prabhupada has come for what reason? Well, you'll say, Prabhupada came to make us Krishna conscious. Okay, that's true. But I would say Prabhupada came to take us back to Godhead. Yeah? Sometimes devotees ask, they say, well, what is the duty of a disciple? And I say, the duty of the guru is to take you back to Godhead, and the duty of the disciple is not to kick, scream, and complain, but go along with the program. So the guru takes the rope, lassos you, and he starts pulling you. And your duty is to just allow him to pull you. Right? If you at least allow him to pull you, he'll pull you. You care enough about your spiritual life that you allow him to pull you. And the pulling is the instruction. He's giving me the instructions. Prabhupada's given so many instructions. You may not be able to follow every instruction now, but there's enough instructions that he can pull you back to Godhead. And so you have to care on some fundamental level. You have to care enough about your spiritual life to be able to do that. And then Prabhupada can pull us. Right? But if you don't care, that's very dangerous. If you don't care, all I can say is, Prabhupada cares, and he wants you to go back to Godhead. And even if you don't want to, he wants you, and therefore, out of service to him, you should do it. What do we hear when we're new bhaktas? Krishna wants you back to Godhead more than you want to go. You heard that, like on day 2 or something. One step, you take 1 step, he'll take 10, or depending on the temple you're in. Could be 100, could be 1,000. Anyway, it's a good investment. You take 1, at least you get 10. The other day, I was saying, sometimes we want proof that Krishna loves us. It was the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Where were we? We were somewhere. Maybe a morning walk, and I was saying, here's the proof. I think we're in his room. We were in his room, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta. There's the proof that Krishna loves you. These are manjaris. These are Krishna's eternal associates. They're not jiva soul. They're not, well, they could be some, but these are Krishna's associates who descended from the spiritual world. Why did they come down here? To have fun? To get pizza at Mayapur pizza place? No. That's not why they came down. They came down on the order of Mahaprabhu for you and me. Out of Krishna's love for us. Otherwise. Right? And then Mahaprabhu says, okay, we're going to give you love like Radharani has. Not just any love, we're going to give you that love. Wow, that's amazing. And then you say, God doesn't love me. Like, get your head screwed on right. He's giving you the jewel of love. He's sending one of his eternal associates after another, and they're writing book after book after. All they're doing is preaching just to try to get us out. We're holding the rope and having a tug of war. Come on, no, I'm not ready. Come on, no, I'm not ready. Surrender. No, I don't like that word. 16 rounds, can you make it 8? 16, can you make it 4? 4 regular principles, can you make it 3? You know, we're just like, isn't it? And then we're saying, God doesn't love me. It's like, doesn't make sense, does it? Right? So if you see in these terms that these associates represent the mercy of Mahaprabhu and the mercy of love of Krishna, and you accept it. You take their care, allow their care, align your desire to care for yourself with their desire to care for you, and then you'll be fine. Okay, so here's the words of that song. Although I've taken human birth, I actually wrote this in the poetry. Although I've taken human birth, finally, O Lord, I've drunk poison willingly. I have not worshipped your lotus feet, thus I've drunk poison as if it were sweet. Okay, we'll stop here. We have enough to read a little bit more, but we'll save it for tomorrow so we can have time for questions. If there are no questions, I'll read more, but if you'd like to ask a question.
I'm speechless.
What?
I'm speechless.
Oh, there's nothing to say. Sign of a good class? Is a lot of questions or no questions? You're afraid to ask because you don't want me to talk anymore, right? What am I going to say now? Okay.
Sometimes I think, like, part of the program is to do this and this and this and this. I cannot do all of this. I just like reading. I like darshan also, but it's like I'm trying to do all of it and then I end up not even reading. So how do we balance that? Because we are supposed to do these things, and I find myself being weak when I don't do it.
Well, when Prabhupada was asked this question, one thing he said about reading was not really reading, but he said, well, you go to the classes in the temple. And then if you have extra time, you read, but at least that's something. Because in answer to your question, maybe this doesn't answer your question, but the way Prabhupada would answer, we'll just do the morning program. Then you've done all 5 things. You've chanted, you've taken darshan, you worship Tulsi, you're in Vaikuntha, you're with the Sangha, and you've heard class. So that was the idea. So I guess your question is, I can't get up at 4 and stay in the temple until 9? Is that the question? What do you do then? Then, in that case, you go to the doctor, I guess. You do the things that are, well, obviously you have to chant 16 rounds, but then you do the things where you get the most strength. So, Bhagavatam is also a deity, so you take darshan, that's deity worship, some point in the day. And if Bhagavatam inspires you, then that's important for you. Everyone's, inspired by something, maybe more than others, and it's always important to do that thing that nourishes you. Right? What, you ever go to a doctor and they say, you're low in vitamin B12, and you're low in iodine, and you're low in this and that, and they give you this pill, and like the next day you're like, wow, I feel like I'm 16. So you have to find that thing that you're deficient in, I'm deficient in hearing or chanting. Maybe some people just want to chant 25 rounds and then they're inspired, or they want to engage in a lot of deity worship. So something It's most inspiring. As long as you cover the minimum, 16 rounds, that's important. Like some of us are deficient in something that's really important for us. But for some people, kirtan is really important. If they don't get kirtan, it's like, there's no reason to live. I have a beautiful story about this devotee. He was brahmachari. I was in charge of the Sankirtan men. And I was also a brahmachari or vanaprastha or something at that point. And this devotee was planning to leave the ashram. In those days, you didn't leave the ashram. You didn't like talk to your authority and say, well, you know, I think I should move out. You blooped. You just waited for everyone to go to class. You got your suitcase. And then you ran away. You did it in style. You didn't talk to anybody. That was the point. Because if you talked to anybody, they would tell you, don't leave. So I didn't know he was leaving. And there were like 25 of us. Guru Puja. 25. At that time I was 29 years old. So 25, 29-year-olds. You can imagine what the kirtan was like. In Los Angeles, it was like the main temple in America. They were like really intense, right? So at the end of the kirtan, he comes up to me and says, thank you for that kirtan. I said, why are you thanking me? He said, because I was planning to bloop, but after that kirtan, I decided I don't want to bloop. So for some of us, kirtan is very important because it gives us that energy, that ecstasy. We need it. And sometimes, if you look at your spiritual life, and if you're having trouble, you'll think, you know, I haven't really been in an ecstatic kirtan in a while, and that's really what I like, or I haven't really read deeply in a while, or I haven't learned any verses in a while, or I haven't been on the altar in a while, or something that I haven't done in a while. That's important for me, or I haven't given a class in a while. So it's important to know where you're deficient, what vitamin you're deficient in. But I was especially remembering this the past few weeks here, because there's so many devotees and there's so much kirtan, and I was like, oh yeah, we were brahmacharis. Every day we'd go out on Sankirtan, and if we didn't have ecstatic kirtan, we didn't have the energy to do it. So we were always, have these like amazing kirtans. And when you're 29, you can dance for like forever. So it was very important for us. And when you get older, sometimes you kind of like to dance, you kind of like kick yourself a little bit because of the way. So you want to remember, well, maybe there's something that was really important that I don't do anymore. I go to Guru Puja and then the kirtan, and I just walk out and talk to somebody or whatever. And you remember, no, when I lived in the temple, that was our life. The kirtans every day. I should go in there and dance like a madman or a madwoman. Yes? Yeah. Somebody, yes.
Is it best to practice what we are deficient at, or is it best to practice what we are inspired about?
Same thing. If you're deficient, I was referring to being deficient about what you're inspired about. Like not doing what inspires you. It's the same thing. It means the same thing. If you have a vitamin deficiency or a mineral deficiency, that means you really need it. So my logic was, because you really need it, it's the thing that inspires you. And you're just neglecting it.
So, say if I'm not inspired attending kirtans, and I'm more inspired spending time in deity worship, so is it that I'm supposed to attend kirtans because...
No, what inspire? Well, you should attend kirtan a little bit. But if deity worship makes a big difference in your spiritual life and you're neglecting it, yeah, definitely you should not neglect it. I remember when I was living here in Mayapur, sometimes I would leave, and people would think, why are you leaving? It's just Mayapur. So I'm leaving to go out and preach. I'm getting dry. Because for me, preaching is very important. So I would get inspired leaving Mayapur to preach. Sounds strange, right? Not that you can't preach in Mayapur, but so like that, you know what you need. Or you're an artist, you're a musician, you're a writer, you like deity worship, something you know. You're a manager, you're a leader, and you're really inspired by those activities, and you haven't been doing them. It's something to consider. I can't say exactly for everyone, but it's something to think about. Is there something I'm neglecting that I remembered now that I'm not doing that was always very inspiring or important for me? And you'll see if you start doing that. You'll know that it's the right activity if that really makes a difference. If it doesn't, then it's probably not. But if it does, you go, I was neglecting this. This is really important. When we were young devotees, right? Now, ISKCON is so different. You go somewhere, you hear a lecture, it's this one, that one, you hear a kirtan, this one, that one. When Prabhupada was here, whose lecture were we hearing? Whose kirtan were we hearing? There's only one. Right? We grew up on Prabhupada's lectures and kirtans. That's all there was. And so this little box came out. It's got like 2,000 lectures of Prabhupada on it. It's like 1,500 rupees. You just press a button and there's a lecture. Type in a number, another lecture. So the devotee, I know the devotee fairly well who made these, who sells them and they design them. And I was saying, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. This has helped me so much, because I wasn't listening to Prabhupada as much. Because on my phone, I have to get it. But I've been listening so much more. He said, you don't know how many Prabhupada disciples told me the same thing. He said, this is like really helping me. Because we grew up listening to Prabhupada every day. And so something like that, you like forget how important it was. And then you put on the lecture, it's like, wow. And then for me, it's like crazy because I put on a lecture and I'm listening to it and going, wait a minute, I was in that lecture when I was 22 and I'm hearing the same lecture 48 years later. It's amazing. So something like that. Could be anything. Yes?
About the kirtan, something came to my mind because my Guru Yadima-san, he's always saying it, and he also said it to me personally, that Prabhupada said that if someone is healthy in their spiritual life, this person is dancing in the kirtan and it's very enlightened and inspired. And I see in my life also that when I feel inspired and when it's gone well, I read about the kirtan. If not, and once or twice we had a situation we've been traveling with our guru and attending different programs, and I wasn't dancing in the kirtans for 2 programs, and after 3 or 7 programs I started to dance, and then he came to me and said, finally.
You want to hear a story? This is a really nice story about this. In Juhu, when they were trying to get the temple, I don't know if you know the story, but the man who sold the temple was trying to cheat the devotees. Cheat them in a way that they would pay. They paid $50,000 deposit, but cheat them in a way that they couldn't build a temple and they couldn't get the land, and he would keep the $50,000 and get the land back. And we didn't know it, but our lawyers were on his side. So we could never get the permit to build. We go down to the municipality. I mean, I didn't go, but I know the devotees who did. They go to the municipality to get the permit. Every day they go, and they could never get it because the man who sold us the property was bribing people in the municipality not to give it to us, and our lawyers were working for him. So one day there was arti, and one of the devotees who was working on this project, this was evening arti, Sunday arti, and one of the devotees working on this project was just sitting in the arti, just like every day going from Juhu on a train into the city. I actually did that for many months. I lived there for many months. And, you know, it's like you have to become like in the mood of a sardine because the trains are so crowded. You know those crowded trains? You don't have to stand up because there's people around you. It's actually kind of comfortable. You know, you just have to balance yourself. It takes some energy. It's so crowded, you just stand there. But you know, you get shoved in and it's hot and it's dirty and you come back and blow your nose, it's black. Your clothes are black. Your feet are black. Your lungs are black. And so he's going every day and he doesn't know that everything is rigged and he can't get the permit. And he's so disappointed and he's sitting, this arting, everybody's, Haribol, Haribol. And he's just sitting there. And Prabhupada saw that, because Prabhupada was at the arting. And then during the lecture, Prabhupada said, even if you don't get the municipal permit, you should dance in the arting. So it's like, whatever's going on, dance in the arting. So I think that's an important instruction. And maybe even more important, that when you don't feel like dancing, that's the best reason to dance. Like when Krishna Karshini was talking to me, she's telling me she's counseling someone, and she brought up a point, and the person said, I don't want to talk about that. I said, yeah, that's the thing he needs to talk about. As soon as you say, I don't want to talk about that, that's it. That's what you need to talk about. So it's the same thing. I don't feel like dancing. Yeah, that's the reason you should dance more than anything. Yeah. So that was Prabhupada's move. Being, you know, this idea, be enthusiastic even if you're not. That was Prabhupada's move. And just because Prabhupada said, if you do that, if you dance even though you don't want to, then you'll want to. You become enthusiastic. I mean, if we all got up and danced, even if we don't want to, in a few minutes we'll feel like it, right? Yes? You know, when I became a devotee, I moved in the temple in 1970. So March 1970, the world no longer existed for me. I had no idea what was going on in the world. I just turned it off. And could you believe I never heard reggae music? I didn't even know what it was. And I went to South Africa in 1981, and I was in a mall. And I guess it was Bob Marley and the, whatever they are, Bob Marley and the whatever?
Wailers.
Wailers, yeah. I guess it must have been him in that era, right? And there's a video of him in the shop window, and all these people in South Africa, all the black people, are looking in the window, and they're in the middle of the mall, they're dancing. I'm like, what is that? Tink, tink. And I never heard it before. And it's like one person starts dancing, another person starts, another person. It's just so that's the idea. If you don't feel like it, if you get up, other people are dancing, you'll feel like it. That was what Prabhupada wanted. Now, you want to know what the song was, right? You want to know what the song was? I have no idea.
Did you know that?
But it must have been a good song.
Did you know that Bob Marley got famous because of Eric Clapton?
Mm-hmm.
You recorded one.
What? I don't know that. But I do know that I ended up in the house of Peter Tosh, his bandmate in Jamaica.
Oh, Mr. Tosh.
Jamaica, man. I ended up in his house by accident. Am I cool or what? Maybe not everybody knows, but it was one of his main bandmates, right? Peter Tosh. Now you all want to hear. How did you end up there? What were you doing? We'll save that for another day. Get you back tomorrow. You know, it was so funny. This was so cool. We were like in every airport in America distributing books. And, you know, all the big bands would travel through the airport, and we'd always get to meet all these, like, famous guys, you know. give them books, you know, or the drummer of this. You know. It was so much fun. You know. Hey, I met, you know, or this actor, I met so and so, gave him a book. Something like that. Okay, anything else? Yes.
I have a question about this dancing thing. Basically in South India, I do not know about North India. South India, the Vaishnava Sampradaya,
Sri
we don't
Sampradaya.
dance, but especially if we don't dance, not even men, women, nobody dances.
Hare Krishna, like that? Just
Yeah,
kind of stand there?
you're always staying like that. And then, you know, and sometimes I feel that even if I have to bring my family to ISKCON and all, like the first thing that I'm so uncomfortable is like,
Because
oh
women
my
shouldn't
God, they will
dance.
come and they will see all
Yeah.
these girls dancing crazily with all those makeups and everything, and they will think that where is Prabha, you know, which cult she is, you know.
Women shouldn't
Like,
dance.
is
in
it
public.
necessary to dance? Because I do not know dance. We don't dance in front of men or gurus or in the temple, or it's culturally we don't do that. It's considered so disrespectful actually.
Well,
Particularly when I can't dance crazy.
I can say a few things about it. So let's just start with America and work our way east. Because I was never here in India with Prabhupada when he was doing public programs. But you'd have to ask someone, I don't know who you could ask who was here. Who's here now? We need to ask somebody who was here to ask, were the women in public, did the devotees get them to dance also?
They dance traditional. The traditional one they dance, but here we just dance like crazily.
Well, first thing, Prabhupada encouraged us to dance, but a lot of the ways we dance is not the way he encouraged us. Like Lord Chaitanya, hands up, like this. That's how he encouraged us.
Yeah, that's
Swami step.
Swami step, but then Prabhupada would sometimes jump. But I never heard Prabhupada, I mean, I heard him sometimes, stop the men because they were dancing wild. I never heard him stop the women from dancing. Don't dance like that.
in traditional culture, women dance, but there is a particular way they dance. Like, there's a particular way they dance.
That's a question, I think, to be better answered by someone who lives in India, but also by one of Prabhupada's disciples who was in India, to see if he ever said anything about it, because he may have. I mean, he was sensitive to the culture, but sometimes he was just like, no, this is what should be done and people should follow it. So sometimes he was like that, and sometimes sensitive to the culture and sentiments of the public. And I can't answer that question because I wasn't
Because
there.
that's one thing I'm so like, when I think about my family, like I tell that, we follow a lot of things in ISKCON, which is of high standards and fasting and daily worship and everything. I'm so proud. But this one thing, I do not even want to invite anyone to Mayapur because I don't want them to see these girls.
No, you have to get them to
But
dance.
it's not only about girls, because I saw in the kirtan that these Bengali women were dancing even more crazy than our
Yeah,
ISKCON
I'm
girls,
talking
so
about South
they are
India.
coming.
Bengali dancing is okay. It's accepted? Bengali
I
dancing?
don't know. They all dance like the Bollywood style. Most of the girls that I see sometimes, I know
No, I
they
don't
dance
see
in
that
the
dancing
Bollywood
like
style.
Bollywood style.
Anyway, I don't know. I think it's definitely a Bengali tradition. Mahaprabhu's kirtan. Just tell them this is Bengal. I don't know in how ISKCON is in the south. Maybe it's different.
Yeah, ISKCON in Coimbatore, Chennai are also different.
Circle dancing, those.
We dance like the traditional ways. Yeah.
But Prabhupada said, if you dance, the ecstasy increases. Increases the ecstasy. And as I've often said, ecstasy is important. It's an important part of our diet. You should get enough ecstasy every day. So dancing increases ecstasy.
Like my guru is criticized, like on Facebook, because of what's going on Woodstock, and the girls, I mean the devotees girls, they are like dancing them like
Oh yeah,
mad
crazy.
girls,
Yeah.
like very crazy. But I I'm not saying that I'm a fan of this kind of dance, but I see it in a way that they're just young girls, and better they are dancing in the kirtan than they're going for the disco, yes? You know, it's just...
If that's the case.
It's just nature, like, of young people. And
That's what I feel. Some people, at least they're dancing.
Anyway, but definitely there was a standard Prabhupada had, and sometimes we maybe go a little beyond it. Okay. Who? Vaishnav Seva. Who? Last question. Vaishnav Seva. You have a question? No. Who? Oh, Alexander.
За счет каких качеств Шрила Прабхупада так быстро искон по всему миру распространен?
What qualities helped Srila Prabhupada to spread his God so quickly all over the world?
What helped it? What helped?
What qualities?
Of Prabhupada's? Of Prabhupada's father?
Yes, what qualities of Prabhupada?
Only one. Pure devotee of Krishna. That's all you need. When you're a pure devotee, you just show up and everybody wants to serve you. Everyone's inspired. Because when you're in the presence of a pure devotee, your spiritual life's like a rocket ship. It just goes straight up very quickly. So Prabhupada had all these very young devotees, but they were acting like they were very advanced by his association and very inspired. And they just wanted, we loved Prabhupada, we just wanted to do whatever he wanted. He said, go to Alaska, go to Siberia, okay, whatever, we'll go. You don't realize, if you're in America and someone says go to Siberia, that's like the end of the universe. It couldn't be any worse place than that. You don't realize it because it's in your country, but for us, Siberia is like going to prison or something. If Prabhupada said go to Siberia, you're living in California, nice weather, go to Siberia, we would go. Because we loved him. Raise your hand if you go to Siberia. Prabhu, I live in Siberia. No problem.
During the World War II, the people were, and like if they wanna punish them, they were sent.
This is Spanish.
As a punishment.
That used to be our joke in America. If you don't do your seva, we're going to send you to Siberia.
They were dying. They were dying there.
Yeah, maybe
almost
that's
for
why.
sure that they were dying.
But if there's love, then everything comes from love. One last question.
По поводу танцев у меня просто такое соображение возникло, что это как разные планеты. Есть планеты Вайкунхи, Галуга Вриндаван, а есть также планеты, где Гаурanga, Махапрабху Прабху. И, соответственно, вот эти танцы и сама культура, она может отличаться, потому что Гаурanga, Махапрабху Прабху, он принес эту культуру такого экстатичного танца по отношению к Богу.
On the subject of dancing, I just came to mind that maybe the difference in culture of the dance comes from the difference of the mood, because there is Galoka Vrindavana,
Yeah, could be.
Mahaprabhu's planet, and Vaikuntha, and people have different moods there.
Could be.
Конечно, эти танцы, они, может быть, не должны быть как в Болливуде, но сам танец, он достаточно таким был.
So maybe the dance shouldn't be like Bollywood type of dance, but still what Mahaprabhu brought
like
here
this.
was an aesthetic form of dance.
That's what Prabhupada said. Hands up. Dancing.
We don't see anyone right now dancing, so maybe Radhana's fine sometimes.
Наверное, нам стоит изучать культуру, танцы.
Yes, like
This is how Prabhupada showed us to dance.
Could you imagine like all the...
If you want to have if you can, watch some videos from the time Prabhupada was here and see the kirtan. That's amazing. Everybody's dancing together. Even we're jumping. But you know what? We didn't know we could jump. And like around 1970 or sometime Prabhupada jumped and it was like news all over ISKCON. Prabhu, you could jump. You could jump. It's okay. We didn't know that. It was Prabhupada. So we found out we could jump. That was big. That was huge.
For me, it took several years to even lift up my hands because we're not supposed to. In the Sri Sampradaya and Madhva Sampradaya. Like women don't lift up your hands like you.
Well, Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada were also revolutionaries, so they broke some rules.
I think that Prabhu is right, like it's more like the Vaikuntha style of worshipping and this is more like the Goloka style.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Premanande
Hariyato. Mahatma Prabhu ki